The most famous cigar in the world was never meant to be sold. For 14 years, you couldn't buy one at any price. It wasn't in stores, it wasn't in catalogs, it officially didn't exist. It was rolled in secret inside a guarded mansion in Havana for exactly one man. And the strangest part of the story is how it began. Not with a master blender, not with a marketing plan. It began with a bodyguard, quietly smoking a cigar that wasn't his job to share. Today, that cigar's name is printed on more counterfeit bands than any other in history. Two completely different companies sell it on two sides of a legal war that has lasted decades, and most people who recognize the name have no idea what it actually means or why it earned its reputation in the first place. This is the real story of Cohiba, and it starts with a smell. Havana, the early 1960s. Cuba's revolution is only a few years old, and Fidel Castro lives surrounded by armed security day and night. One of those men is a bodyguard named Bienvenido Perez, a man everyone simply calls Chicho. Chicho has a small personal luxury. A friend of his, a local cigar roller named Eduardo Ribera, makes him cigars by hand. Nothing official, nothing famous, just a private blend rolled the way Ribera likes to roll. One day, Castro catches the aroma of Chicho's cigar and stops. He asks what it is. He tries one, and by every account that survives, he is genuinely stunned by it. Here is a man with access to any cigar Cuba produces, and the one that captures him comes from an unknown artisan rolling for a friend. Castro's response tells you everything about what happens next. He doesn't ask where to buy them. He asks Ribera to make them exclusively for $4.
Now, you have to understand the context because it explains everything strange about Cohiba's early years. This is the height of the Cold War. The CIA has already begun plotting against Castro's life, and some of those plots, we now know from declassified documents, involved cigars, poisoned cigars, even an exploding cigar. That sounds like a cartoon, but it's in the official record. So the cigars made for Castro couldn't come from an ordinary factory where hundreds of hands touched the tobacco. They needed a closed circle, a small, trusted team, a place that could be watched. The place they chose is one of the most unusual cigar factories on Earth, and it's still operating today. In the west of Havana, in an exclusive neighborhood called El Laguito, stands a mansion built before the revolution. Marble staircase, chandeliers, the kind of home that once belonged to Havana's wealthiest families. In 1966, that mansion became a cigar factory. From the street, it looks like a diplomat's residence. Inside, rollers work at wooden tables in what used to be bedrooms and salons. There are no assembly lines, there is no industrial floor. Cohiba is born in a house. And El Laguito broke another rule at the same time. Cigar rolling in Cuba had been, for generations, an overwhelmingly male trade. El Laguito opened as a school where women were trained, and the name they chose reaches further back into history than any other word in the cigar world. When Columbus reached Cuba in 1492, his men saw something they had never seen before. The native Taino people were burning rolled leaves and drawing in the smoke. The word associated with those rolled leaves in the Taino language was Cohiba. So the newest cigar in Cuba took the oldest name on the island. The very first cigar, in a sense, and the profile on the band, the silhouette of a Taino head, honors the people who smoked tobacco on that soil centuries before anyone in Europe knew it existed. But a beautiful name doesn't make a cigar worth protecting with armed guards. So what was actually inside it? What made this blend different from everything else Cuba produced? The answer comes in two parts, and the second one is a genuine secret of the trade. The first part is selection. Cuba's finest tobacco grows in the far west of the island in a region called Vuelta Abajo, and within that region, two small zones, San Juan y Martinez and San Luis, are considered the best of the best. Cohiba doesn't simply buy tobacco from this area. It takes the first selection from a handful of the finest farms before any other brand chooses. Imagine a wine label with first pick of the greatest vineyards in Burgundy, every single harvest. That's the starting position. The second part is what happens to those leaves afterward, and this is the detail that separates people who know Cohiba from people who only recognize the band. All Cuban cigar tobacco is fermented. The leaves are stacked in large piles, where natural heat and moisture slowly transform them, mellowing harshness and developing flavor. Every Cuban brand does this twice, it's standard practice.
Cohiba does it a third time. At El Laguito, the Seco and Liguera leaves, the leaves responsible for flavor and strength, are fermented again, resting in wooden barrels. It's slow. It's expensive. It ties up tobacco that could have been rolled and sold, and no other Cuban brand receives it. That third fermentation is widely credited with Cohiba's signature character, a cigar that can be rich and complex while staying remarkably smooth. When experienced smokers describe a Cohiba as tasting refined, this is much of the reason why. Not marketing, barrels, and patience. So through the late 60s and the 70s, this extraordinary cigar existed almost like a phantom. Castro smoked it, and beyond his own humidor, Cohiba took on a second life as an instrument of diplomacy. Boxes of Cohibas became Cuba's gift to visiting heads of state, ambassadors, and dignitaries. If you were handed one, it meant something no money could replicate, because money couldn't buy it. For 14 years, Cohiba was arguably the most exclusive cigar on the planet, precisely because it had no price. That changed in 1982. Cuba needed hard currency, and it held a legend in its hands. Cohiba was finally released to the world in just 3 sizes: the Panatella, the Corona Especial, and the long, slender Lancero, the elegant format most closely associated with Castro himself, finished with a little pigtail twist on the cap that became a house signature. The world's most secret cigar was suddenly the world's most desired one. And then came one of history's quiet ironies. In 1985, as part of a national health campaign, Fidel Castro gave up smoking entirely. The man the cigar was created for would never smoke it again. The brand had officially outgrown its patron.
It kept growing. In 1989, 3 new sizes completed what's now called the classic line, including 2 names you've almost certainly heard: the Esplendido, a grand, generous cigar that became a status symbol from Havana to Hollywood, and the Robusto, shorter and broader, which many enthusiasts still consider one of the finest cigars Cuba makes in that format. Then, in 1992, 500 years after Columbus, Cohiba honored its own origin story with the Linnea 1492, 5 cigars named Siglo I through 5, one for each century since that first encounter with Taino tobacco. A 6th siglo followed a decade later. By the 90s, Cohiba wasn't just a cigar. It was the face of Cuban tobacco worldwide, and that's exactly when the story splits in 2. Here's a question that confuses cigar lovers every single day. Walk into a shop in London, and the Cohiba on the shelf is Cuban. Walk into a shop in Miami, and the Cohiba on the shelf is not. Same name, similar band, completely different cigar, made in the Dominican Republic by a completely different company. How is that possible? The answer is the embargo. When the United States cut off trade with Cuba in the early 60s, Cuban brands effectively vanished from the American market. They couldn't be sold there, and crucially, their trademarks sat vulnerable. In the late 70s, an American company, General Cigar, filed for the Cohiba name in the United States and registered it. Under U.S. law at the time, the name was theirs. For years, little happened. Then, in 1997, General Cigar launched its own Cohiba. What followed is one of the longest trademark wars in the history of luxury goods. Rulings have gone one way, then the other. Registrations have been challenged, canceled, appealed, and revived. The fight has now stretched across decades, and even today, it still isn't fully settled. 2 Cohibas continue to exist, each legal in its own territory, each claiming the name. Whatever your opinion of the dispute, one thing is objectively true. The Cohiba story, the bodyguard, the mansion, the third fermentation, belongs to the Cuban original. The Dominican Cohiba is its own cigar, with its own blend, born from a legal opening the embargo created. And fame created one more enemy, this one far worse than a courtroom rifle: counterfeits. Cohiba is, by most expert accounts, the most counterfeited cigar on earth. The band is faked more than any other. In tourist areas of Havana itself, someone will almost certainly offer you a box of Cohibas at a price that seems like the deal of a lifetime. Experts are blunt about this. The overwhelming majority of those street offers are fake. Some are ordinary cigars wearing false bands. Some are worse. The rule seasoned smokers live by is simple. If the price looks too good to be true, it is. Real Cohibas come from official Habanos dealers, with sealed boxes, holographic 100 humidors, each holding 40 cigars of a new blend called Bahique,
named for the Taíno word for a shaman. They sold for the price of a luxury car, and collectors fought over them. 4 years later, Bahique became a regular line, and it introduced something new to the modern cigar world, a leaf called medio tiempo. On some tobacco plants, and only some, 2 small extra leaves appear at the very top, soaked in more sunlight than any others. They're scarce, they're potent, and they're packed with flavor. Those leaves define Bahique, and they're a big part of why it remains one of the most sought-after cigars money can buy, when you can find it at all. So, after all of this, what does that black and gold band actually mean? It doesn't mean the best cigar in the world. No honest expert would crown a single brand that way, and plenty of magnificent cigars carry other names. What the band means is a story that no other cigar can tell, a blend discovered by accident in the smoke of a bodyguard's private indulgence, a factory hidden inside a mansion staffed by women who broke a century of tradition, a third fermentation that no sister brand receives, 14 years as a gift that could not be bought, a name taken from the very first people ever known to smoke. The next time you see that Taíno profile on a band, real or fake, Cuban or Dominican, you'll know what everyone around you doesn't. You'll know where it came from, why it earned its legend, and exactly what to look for when you finally hold the genuine article in your hand. Because in the end, that's what separates a famous cigar from an understood one, and understanding always is the better smoke.